Thanks for watching bookwinoTV. I'm Susan Neal, and today we're chatting with my good friend Toni McGillen, author of In the Meantime, which is a care guide for women facing a combative divorce. First of all, Toni, congrats on the book, and thanks for having us over.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad we could have this conversation, especially with October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so what we're going to do is delve into the book a little bit, and as we talk about the book, Toni's going to share some words of wisdom, some tips for those going through the meantime. And at the end, I've also asked Toni to share one of her favorite wines with us, so I'm looking forward to that. And let's begin with the title. What was the inspiration behind the title? And also, what were some challenges you faced? Literal challenges, psychological, maybe logistical challenges you faced in bringing this book to life?
Brilliant questions. I would say the title, to get to the In the Meantime, it just honestly hit me one day, because it's a common phrase that we use in life, you know, in the meantime.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I had heard it with the word mean in it. I had never heard the word mean in that word before. So as I was thinking about how am I going to name this book, what do I want to call it, and what's something that really resonates and has that capturing, I just thought it was a brilliant way, because it was both, you're in the meantime, you're dealing with the fact that you don't know where you are, the life that you had created is going away, but you're not yet in the new life that you have yet to create, so you're in the meantime.
Yeah.
And then also it can get mean. And so I just thought that was a beautiful way to kind of capture it, and it's something that was very common. So that's how I came up with the name. And then just in terms of the second question, which is like what it took to put it together.
Yeah.
It took time. It took, I would say, a journey of little segments of it coming together at pieces. It wasn't like I had an idea of what this was going to look like. It kind of self-created itself in a way where I would just notice certain things and I would capture them. Psychologically, it was obviously both a blessing and a challenge, because there was a part of me that when you have to go back and get the wisdom, it takes you reliving those journeys and those moments, and most of us don't want to do that. And so doing that with my now husband and being able to have somebody with me in that journey, I think was essential. I think that's part of the reason that something like this probably hasn't been out there before. It takes a team to do that with you. And then the other side of that, I would say, is I also was trying to speak to the one that's there, because I have come out of it. So it's like part of the design of how to write was, how do I speak to the Toni that was in that place?
In that moment.
In that moment, and what did she need to hear? Not the one that I was afterwards, but the one that was there at the beginning. And how can I reach her, and how could I put something together that served her, but also didn't, you know, blow her out of the water, didn't have something where she was just like, oh, I'm not going to,
can't handle it.
I can't
Not
read
doing
anymore.
it, right,
Exactly, yeah.
right,
So that
right.
was part of the journey of writing it. Mm-hmm.
Well, oftentimes a victim of abuse or bullying carries this huge burden of guilt or shame on their shoulders. Talk about your experience with that, and also how can someone who's going through a similar situation address the guilt and the shame that they feel?
Oh, great questions. I would say the guilt and the shame, really, honestly, when you've lived the experience, it comes from you. It's not an outward thing, although it looks like it's an outward thing. It's actually, you feel shameful that you didn't see this. You feel guilty that you somehow were stupid and missed something, or naive, and that you could have done something differently. And I think that that's the biggest sadness in this experience, is that you really are just a loving soul, and you really just happen to find somebody who took advantage of that. And so part of, I think, the biggest challenge when you've been treated that way, you know, psychologically, emotionally, is coming back to trusting yourself. And when you get that place of, I trusted myself once, this was the outcome of that, how can I possibly trust myself again? That's where the guilt and the shame comes from.
Yeah.
And so it's letting yourself allow yourself to trust again. And it's by practice. It's not by all of a sudden you're going to have this aha moment
Right.
where you're trusting her. It's like small steps again. What can I do that's next for me in terms of expanding my level of trust of myself, and then taking that action. And over time, you return. You literally return. And when that happens, that's when you really annihilate the guilt and the shame, because it's no longer about you. It's you get to own the responsibility piece that you had in the whole design.
And Dr. Brene Brown, who's an expert on vulnerability, I was watching OWN. I love Super Soul Sunday. I was watching OWN the other week, and she was speaking on vulnerability, and she said one way to address shame is to speak on it. Mm-hmm. Shame lives in the darkness. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And but with the caveat that you only share your vulnerability with those who have earned the right to hear your vulnerability. So what were the responses of some of those people that you were close to in your life? Were you surprised by their responses? Were you expecting one type of response and got the other? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say you get both. You actually have the experience of you share something, you be vulnerable with people that you may or may not have shared some of the silence pieces of what the journey was. And I think sometimes you have the expectation, because they didn't know and because they're your dear friend, they're going to immediately be on your side. They're going to immediately, as soon as you share this information, they're going to be like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
What can I do? And sometimes that does happen. And they had inklings along the way. And so you're unveiling that part of what you didn't share with them in a way that you apologize, obviously, because you don't mean to keep them out of it. You just think you're doing the right thing. They will rally around you. And the other side is when they don't have that sense of anything was wrong, because you did have a pretense. I mean, you have to be responsible. There was a part of you that wasn't sharing for appropriate protection.
Yeah.
And so they don't see it. They don't think that that was part of the process, and their own experience doesn't show them that. So they're kind of torn because they want to believe you, but
you
they're
kept them in the dark, so they're not sure who
Absolutely.
to believe or what to believe.
Absolutely. And I would say, so for them, it's challenging because their reality shows they want to trust themselves. And part of their self-experience is that this wasn't the case, and now you're saying this. So are you really saying this just because you're mad?
Yeah.
Or just because you're hurting? Or is this really something, so there's some skepticism that usually will show up. And what I would offer is allow yourself to look and see who are the ones, like you said, that have earned the vulnerability. Because you can also set yourself up for opening up to people who are not on your side, and they can become to the other side. So you just want to make sure that you're doing it with prudence and taking caution, but appropriate measured.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the book is on page 80, and I want to read this quote.
Okay.
You may have already fallen on your faith or had your light extinguished. I think we can all relate to that at some point in our lives. You may have lost a battle along the way or done something seemingly unforgivable. It's never too late. Let me say that again. It's never too late. God still loves you. He is still with you even now when you may not feel it. He can move mountains, even yours. Forgive yourself now. Let it go now. Get back up now. And let me tell you why I loved this. I was preparing for the interview a couple of weeks ago, and not every day is perfect, and I was having a down day, and this passage spoke to me. It spoke to me, and I said, wow, it doesn't matter really what you're going through in your life, be it divorce or financial challenges or anything. I found that this book applied to me too in that moment. So I love that this book is for a wider audience and just those going through a divorce or supporting somebody through a combative divorce. But talk about your favorite passage or your favorite part of the book. What are you most proud of? What part of the book are you most proud of?
Oh, man.
She's like, all of it. I know it. Yeah.
It's going to be silly because it's not about the content. It's more about the design. I'm proud that the design is simple because my goal was to try and keep it simple with, hope and inspiration and nuggets of wisdom. And so I think what was funny is as I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I take care of the part that's the logistical part? It's the part of you that you need to pay attention to, and you're out in the world, and financially there's a lot of information you're going to need to gather for the divorce. And then on the other side, there's the soul and the personality and the character that you are, and how do you take care of her?
Yeah.
And so I was finding as I was writing it, the two things were just not able to be blended. And so to be able to create the book into two separate segments,
Yeah.
I thought, I think that's what I'm probably most proud of, is trusting my gut that when I was trying to put things together that really didn't go well, keeping them separate, and that was okay, because the full package was delivering it.
Yeah.
But to your point, that I was tearing up when you were sharing about the...
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
And it's the thing I'm probably most proud about the book, is that it takes something to write it, it takes something to put it together, but it also takes something to do this.
Yeah.
And to speak, like you said, to put a voice to the silence. And so I'm most proud that I've gotten to a place where I feel like I can do that on a public stage.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's easy, but it means that I believe that this work serves the light, that it is something that forwards love in the world and inspiration and hope. So for me, it's about loving God and serving Him in a way that is going to help people who are suffering. So that's, I think, what I'm most proud of. Yeah.
Well, Toni, we're proud of you. We know that divorce is often one of the most painful and confusing, if not dangerous, situations that a person can face in their lifetime. So up next, Toni's going to tell you what she thinks every woman should know. We'll be back after this message.
Words support like bone, dreaming of Mercy Street, where you're inside out, dreaming of mercy.
We are back with Toni McGillen, author of In the Meantime. And now, Toni, your book gives a lot of insight, but what are 3 nuggets of wisdom that you can leave our audience with today?
First, what I want you to think about is, if you aren't tied to the financial side of your family and what you're working on, or if somebody else has been doing that with you or for you, you definitely want to take a moment. And it might not be something you enjoy to do, it might not be something you think you're good at, but you definitely would want to take the time to go find out your financial information. If you have a mortgage, what company is that with? If you have an income, or if your spouse has an income, what that information is. The best source, I think, that's an immediate source, is tax forms from last year. It will usually capture every account that you have, income streams, things like that. So that's, I would say, number one, is just get your financial house in order. Even if it's not in order, go find out what it is. Secondly, I would say is, when you are in this process, there's going to be a part of you that wants to stay in communication, open communication with your spouse, because you think that that's going to help. And you think that by keeping that open line of communication, you are actually helping it be amicable. And I would say, on one hand, you might be right, but you also might not be right. And I would rather you behave as though you don't know which way it's going to go and protect yourself than just assume that you know without mitigating that risk. So I would say the other thing you'd want to do is just document any information or any conversations you have. I think that's very important, and it's not going to be easy. But you might want to just start practicing any conversation you have, sending an email. Here's what we talked about. I just want to capture it here so that we're clear. You can also just stop the verbal conversations and just say, "Can you please send me an email? I wouldn't mind, just having the time to read it and review it, and then I can respond to that." I think that's really important during this time. And then I would say probably another one. There's probably too many, but the third, if we were going to 3, I would say is to keep a journal. And you want to do this with prudence because you don't want to write everything down because these can be used and captured in the legal system, but you want to do things for yourself. So you want to capture anything that will help you with your memory. Most of us, when we're in a situation where we feel confronted or it's not a happy place, we tend, especially as females, I don't know why, and I'm not stereotyping us, but it just happens that way.
Yeah.
We tend not to remember things in those strong emotional states. So it's best to try and capture that in a journal for yourself so that you can always go back and remind yourself and have it to go back to, so that you don't have to remember those things. You can capture them and then kind of let them go, but you know that there's a place you can go to. So those are kind of my top 3.
And what do you say to I mean, oftentimes people don't want to get involved in people's relationships. They don't want to get involved in someone's marriage. Sadly, even if there is a case of violence going on, that's just the society we live in. And I can appreciate people feeling uncomfortable about that. But to the people that want to help, to the friend or family member that wants to help, how can they support someone that's going through the meantime?
I would say the first and foremost thing is don't ask them what they need because they really don't know. They're going to just give you silence. So what you want to do is come up with what you think you might need. Do you need little texts that are sent to you on a weekly basis that are like little quotes of inspiration, or I've got your back, or I'm sending you love, or those things were a blessing to me. And they were usually easy. It was a simple thing for people to do. Obviously, there's the traditional ones of like preparing meals or helping out with childcare if you have children. Just offer a weekend to just find a weekend that you want, or an overnight, or a dinner, or something that you just say, listen, on Friday I'm going to be there, I'm bringing something, just so you know, I want you to take Friday off. We're going to bring something for the family. And then that way you are just declaring it, what you're going to do for them, instead of asking permission. I think that that's a key, because there is a lot of times when they just don't know what they need. And I would say on the other side of that is just listen. I mean, I can't tell you the value of having somebody just listen and not give their opinion and not say what they think about it, or that they had a friend that went through this, to just not even say any of it and just listen and nod. And silence is almost the best thing you could be for that person.
Just like this, listen and nod right now.
Exactly, yeah.
Bring some joy to this.
Absolutely. And then for me, I would say, believe it or not, just holding somebody's hand. Something as simple when somebody's telling their story and it's a difficult thing to do, and I don't know if you noticed, but you did it after I was moved, just grabbing their hand and saying nothing, but holding it is something that is precious. And it's something that means a lot more than anything you could possibly say.
Right, that human touch, I'm here for you. And just being present for your friend or family member going through this tough time. So Toni, thanks again for sharing your work with us and going to that deep, difficult place to lay out a roadmap on paper for those that are going through the meantime. In the meantime, can be found on our blog, bookwino.com, as well as online.
Online at Amazon.com. We also, it's going to be an ebook version, so that's going to be available soon, as well as we're launching a website, meantimebook.com. So please check us out there.
Very good. And earlier I had asked Toni to share one of her favorite wines with us. So what are we trying today?
So today we're trying a Pinot Grape. This is the white version. The Pinot Noir is the red version. So the Pinot Gris, and it's by King's Estate in Oregon. I just find it's great. It's refreshing. It's a little bit dry, not too sweet. So it's my favorite Pinot Gris. So
Good. Can't wait to try it. And Toni said you can find this wine at
your local grocery stores. You can even find it at Costco if that's near you. So
very good. Well, cheers to the meantime.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Susan Neal. Thanks for watching bookwinoTV.